Hello everyone, and welcome back to Tutorials of Tone. My name is Alex. Thank you so much for watching this video. What we have today is the Alice in Chains classic, Man in the Box. While this is known for its Talkbox tone, Jerry Cantrell is also very famous for his grungy, heavy metal guitar tones, both with his amp and with his signature wah pedal, which we have dialed in here. Let's dive right in. First up, we have our input block. Everything is at stock settings except the threshold of our gate is at negative 47.5 dB, just where I like having it for my Morse Music Man guitars. I'm on the bridge humbucker throughout this entire tune. Next up, we have our pitch block. This is incredibly vital to nailing this in E-flat standard if you're trying to avoid a lot of guitar changes in your set, or maybe you don't have time to do so. Having a virtual capo at the front of your layout and at the front of your signal chain will really help you out in this scenario. We do have scene ignore turned on. Should you bypass this, this will remain through all of your scenes and you won't have to worry about all of a sudden transposing your guitar. We have this shift to -1, down 1/2 step. We have our input 1 as our detector source, and I have set the tracking to smooth pitch tracking. I have put this to 10. You can toy with how much of this you want and how much latency you're cool with playing. I like to just adjust to the final sound, especially with a slower riff like this, but if it's an intricate line, I may take that down and get as much latency out of the signal as possible. To each their own. I have the input gain and mix set to 100%. You want the full volume coming in from the input block, and you definitely don't want this anywhere other than 100% if you're down tuning your guitar, or you'll introduce some of the other signal in there and be playing in half steps with yourself. The level is at unity gain. If you find that this introduces lower artifacts, you can of course bring in a low cut. I start with 40 Hertz. We can hear the difference between those two. Here we have just the crunch tone with no low cut. And here we have it with our 40 Hertz low cut. Very, very minimal, but it could be very important to you and your guitar and setup. So if you need that, that's where you can find it. Moving on, we move to the wah block, which we got to hear a little bit. This, as you can see, auto engages when we're on our scene 2 or any scene that incorporates the wah, which for this preset would be scenes 2, 3, and 5, where we're using the wah, the solo wah, or having both the talkbox and the wah. But when we're on the talkbox scenes, as I move the expression pedal, you can see this is not engaging and therefore bypassed. We have the bypass mode set to through. This is because I have the channel that the modifier works for only on channel A. Then I go to my scene manager. I look at wah wah 1, and on any Talkbox exclusive scene, such as scenes 1 and 4, we are on channel B. As we cycle through, we see the channel change, and we auto-engage. Very handy. You can use one expression pedal to get multiple effects going. Very cool. We have this set up to the Jerry Cantrell signature wah specifications in terms of frequencies. The minimum is at 365 Hertz, and the max is at 1850. Again, that sounds like this. Taking down that max frequency a bit gives us that throaty character in that mid-range without getting too brittle. Very rock and roll. Moving on, the heart and soul of the tone, we have the Brit 800 mod. Jerry Cantrell, known for using a high gain mod on his JCM 800. I have everything set really neutral for this one. The bright switch is engaged, but none of the EQ controls were really that necessary for this guitar and this setup. Feel free to adjust to taste. The input EQ set completely flat, as is the output EQ. Jumping over to our cab, we have a 4x12 Brit TV pair with a 57 and then a 421 rolled off negative 2.5 dB. For our preamp section, we do have an 80 Hz low cut and a 10K high cut on our cab. Just a standard Marshall run-of-the-mill thing. Keep the bandwidth narrow so you stay alive in the mix. We are running into a medium room reverb in parallel at negative 10 dB for our level, and then out to our output block. As you can see, scene 3, where we are running both our Talkbox and our wah, we have a little bit of attenuation there. Just by combining signals, you want to keep things at unity gain, keep things tethered. So, with both our format block and our wah active, we have this sound. Now that's all well and good, but the FM3 version of this is a slight compromise to what you would hear in the stereo version of the Axe-FX III or the FM9, where you get to run 2 amp blocks. And that sounds like this. Now we will work backwards. We do have a filter block with a 3 dB boost. That is meant for our solo Talkbox signal, as well as our solo wah tone. We also have a digital mono delay set to a quarter note. That is also engaged for our solo tones. For all of our Talkbox tones, I do have a multiband compressor running straight through. This does not affect what is reverberated in the reverb signal, but it's just there to be set flat and attenuate those lows and those low mids that really pop out with the Talkbox signal. And now, for our Talkbox tone, the thing you've all been waiting for, or jumped ahead in the timeline to see. We're using the format block, just as we did with Livin' on a Prayer, but in this case, we're not combining this with the wah. We are just using the format block. It is placed between the amp and the cab. Our control is set up to our expression pedal. The level is set to negative 2.5 dB, and we do filter in a little bit of the dry amp signal to give it that full-bodied sound. The most important thing about any Talkbox attenuation or adjustment, the vowel shapes, the start, mid, and end of that signal. So you can hear ooh, ah. Is it exactly a Talkbox? No. Is it a lot nicer than setting up a tube, a mic, extra cables, 4-cable method, all that? Yes, and it gets the point across in a mix. Important. We have that running in parallel, and our filter block is just set null and gives us 5 dB lower of attenuation on our clean amp signal. So with that bypass, we can hear just the Talkbox signal. And with that blended in at quite a healthy level for this sound. Should you find that this is not an agreeable balance, you can take the level of your filter block and the level of your formant and find what works best for you. Well, that about does it for this preset. If you enjoyed this video, there are more videos throughout the channel, tutorials of tone, Fractal 101s, gear reviews, playthroughs, etc. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you all next time.